Hey Exiles, wow, do we have a lot to talk about when it comes to Path of Exile 2. We are over a month into the third Edict update, and if you played during week 1, week 2, week 3, or week 4, it does not matter because the game is completely changed. A few days ago, 0.3.1 dropped, and I avoided making an initial video giving my take on the update in full. I played it for a few days, played a lot of endgame on my monk, and now I want to give my take in full, as well as the opinion of the overall community on this literally game-changing patch. So, as always, the timestamps are in the description below if you are interested in a specific subject. I'm going to give you all the latest, what's happening with Path of Exile 2 if you've moved on, or if you're one of the 80,000 plus who are still playing every single day on Steam and just want a little bit of insight into the greater community reception. First, we're going to start with the controversial, then we're going to move into the good, and then we're going to get my overall thoughts on the patch and the future of Path of Exile 2 at this present moment, and a little bit of a news drop on some other ARPG goodness. There is quite the phenomenon. Oh my goodness. There, a little bit of Chapel Rome for you. There's a little bit of a phenomenon going on in the ARPG scene that I need to talk about. As always, if you like the video, want to support the content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for all Path of Exile 2 news, updates, and more. So, first of all, I can confirm this is the most consequential mid-league update in the history of either Path of Exile 1 or Path of Exile 2. 031 completely revamped the endgame structure of Path of Exile 2, and I'd argue it's for the better. However, there have been some very controversial and polarizing changes introduced, either intentionally or accidentally by Grinding Gear Games. Let's talk about the first, which is the removal of rare monster icons on the minimap. This came as a shock to some, it was expected by others. I am disappointed that Grinding Gear Games did not include it in the patch notes or put it in the video because it was an obvious removal, and they should be upfront about big changes like this. I'm a fan of it being removed because I don't like to play the minimap. I know lots of people do like to play the minimap, and a lot of the rewards right now are still baked into the rare monsters and maps, and now you need to go back to what we were doing in early days of 0.1, hunting the rares across the map. Now, maps are a lot smaller now. The rares are a lot more joined up throughout the map on the way to the map boss, but still, a change like this should have been communicated to the players, and it has caused a bit of a rift in the community. There are some people who think it should not be added back and enjoy it being gone. They don't like the way it made their brain think, the way it made them play the game, and there are those who would really like it back. They loved using the minimap to plan out the most optimal route to find those rare monsters. Well, I'm in the middle because I didn't like it. I don't want it to come back, but I do understand that it was valuable to a huge swath of players. So I have a middle ground idea, plus a bunch of other interesting ideas that Grinding Gear Games might be able to use. First and foremost, why not just add it back as an option? It's like having your health and mana bar over your character. It is optimal to play that way, but I don't use it because I don't like the UI clogging up the screen. I don't want to be watching my little red bar above my character the entire time. I want to look at the actual monsters, what's going on in the environment around me. There is another option as well. How about if you get near a rare monster, it appears on the map, and if you leave that rare monster's vicinity, the icon stays on your map, much like breach hands. So if you accidentally zoom past a rare monster, it stays on your minimap and you'll be able to go back and find it later on. My community did also have some pretty interesting ideas, such as adding rare monster icons back if you're wearing a headhunter, adding it back as an Atlas passive node where you can slot it and it will then show you rare monster icons. Maybe if you use a tower, all the maps in the vicinity then show rare monster icons when you load into the map. There are a few other funky ideas like that, but I prefer the first two if Grinding Gear Games decides to add it back. Honestly though, if they add it back, it needs to come with the option available because I so enjoy not needing to look at the minimap to try and find those rares or just being distracted by that on my minimap. I've heard lots of opinions on this matter. I'd love to hear yours in the comments below as we move to the next controversial change that happened with 031, and that is juicing. So, towers no longer juice maps using tablets. You juice the maps using tablets, each individual map. So now you can juice any map you want, every single map if you would like to. You don't need to look for a tower or a 2-tower setup or a 3-tower setup. You can just go in, juice the tower with your elks, with your exalted orbs, and with your tablets and have fun. Well, this also means that the ceiling for juicing was lowered. The ceiling was lowered and the floor was raised. So for the ultra juicers, the people who want to get as much currency as possible, that ceiling has been lowered. But here's the reason why, everyone. While people are upset that the ceiling is gone and you can't get as much quantity or pack size, the fact is you no longer need to search for these multi-tower setups. At most, you need to search for the cleansed maps if you're looking for currency. But if you don't even care about that, you can just put in your tablets onto every single map. You can juice every single map. That is a huge win. Sometimes I know it would take 50, 60 maps before you found a 3-tower setup. I never partook, but the people who did and are upset about the lack of juicing available now, they don't realize that now you can just do it with everything you play. Some people also think there may have been some rarity changes, some hidden changes going on here. And that is a possibility. I mean, they didn't include the rare monster icons being removed. Maybe there were some other changes in the background as well. I just say to GGG, please, I respect your transparency. I love you guys as developers. Please continue to be transparent with the audience. If you are making changes in the background, and you usually detail these changes in patch notes, make sure you do it in every single patch. Otherwise, people are going to go rampant on the speculation here, which people are doing everywhere right now. They are hot to go. As for me on the juicing change, it's just a positive. Just elking and going, or just like I said, flinging stuff in the map device and playing is better than ever before. So I am a huge fan of how the end game has changed here. Towers gone, didn't care about them before, and now I'm just getting a lot more content in my maps with the mandatory 1 to 3 that Grinding Gear Games adds in, and then I'm just running with tablets constantly, and usually 3 tablets because I'm running 6 mod maps, which nicely segues us into the next topic of discussion, the final controversial one I'd like to speak about before getting into the good stuff, the wins, and that is punishment in Path of Exile 2's endgame. We all know I am a glutton for punishment. I do want the game to be hard. I love how hard the bosses are. We'll talk about that in a second. But right now, does Path of Exile 2's endgame punish you too much? Well, this post outlines it very well. Gematria says, failing a map has too many downsides. You're being punished for failing a map by you lose a charge on all tablets, you lose the Waystone, you lose XP, which is perfectly fine with the 75% XP loss omen of amelioration, by the way. You have to run a map without any bonus content in it. It's the last point I have an issue with. I think you should be able to apply the tablets to the maps you failed. If I die, I already have more than enough punishment. Right now, if I fail a map, I will run the map again with a T1 Waystone. I don't think that's how it should be. And Sanitized Bird adds in, the downside I hate the most is doing the map again for no reward just for pathing. If I fail a map, let me continue on to the next node. Stop making me waste my time. Enraging Panic adds another good point. The real downside is the node being empty when you fail it. People may not remember, but the original design was that the node became dead and you couldn't run it again and had to go around. That is crazy. 01 was crazy. Okay, Exiles. They have a point. After playing the new endgame for about 10 hours the past few days, late into the night, I agree. Dying in a map right now is too punishing. You have limited portals when you're juicing it to the maximum, and when you fail, it feels horrible. Yes, you should be punished in some way for failing. You want to build a well-rounded character, but the punishments here have stacked up. I am perfectly fine for the hardest content in the game being the most rewarding and the most limited with the one portal thing, but all the other downsides just suck, and it makes traversing the Atlas so much worse. I'm on their side with just flinging in a T1 Waystone. I flow in a white T15 when I fail a map, and it just feels bad to run. It's like a walk of shame. But what is the solution here? I'm not quite sure. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. I just think there's too much punishment ongoing in the end game. Now, I do think punishment should remain, but it should be toned down just a little bit here. I think maybe just being able to continue juicing it with tablets is the way to go. Running that empty map really is the bad feeling. Okay, one more bad thing. I'm also still crashing. The crashes suck. We don't need to go into performance, but the crashes stuck. Grinding your games, fix them before 0.4, please. All right, and now here's a little bit of glazing for grinding your games. The end game, so much smoother. Elkin going is incredible. I can just play at my own leisure. I don't need to do a whole bunch of micromanagement. I like that every single map has a boss in it. And oh my goodness, Exiles, the bosses now are challenging. I love it. I'm running into bosses with 10 million HP, 14 million HP, depending on how much I juice the map. These T15 bosses fight back. Not only are their abilities powerful, but I actually get to see them at the same time. They are engaging fights once more. So now you're ping-ponging in Path of Exile 2's endgame between the zoomy, yes, the zoomy gameplay of mapping, fighting abyssal monsters, all the rare monster packs, all the other mechanics are quite zoomy in Path of Exile 2's endgame, and then you hit that hard block at the boss where you have to engage with all of its abilities, watch those tells, actually learn what it's doing. A lot of the Act 4 bosses that I whipped through on my initial campaign run, I'm learning their mechanics in endgame now, and I love that. Of course, this is going to affect the above average and below average player the most. The absolute sweats will not be affected because they're already doing 10 million, 20 million and above damage per second to these bosses. But for me, I'm getting 1 to 3 minute boss fights now, depending on the modifiers of the Waystone, and having a blast. I love this sort of design. This is the balance we're looking for. If we're not going to get meaningful or engaging combat with the packs of maps in endgame, at least we can have it in the bosses. I hope this isn't a bug on Grinding Gear Games' end. I hope it's here to stay, and I yearn for it to be switched to the pinnacle bosses as well. Because if you have been playing, you might notice that the map bosses, especially the deadlier, powerful map bosses, they're quite hard. They're quite tanky. But if you go on over to Zesht or the King in the Mists or any other endgame boss, even the Arbiter of Ash, they are weaker than map bosses now. They have less hit points on their Uber 150 splinter versions than regular T15, T16 map bosses, and something is wrong with that. They need to up the scaling of those bosses. I really hope the scaling of map bosses was not an accident, and that in 0.4 or an upcoming 0.3.2 patch, they buff the pinnacles to match the current map bosses. However, the map bosses do have two problems, okay? Let's lay them out really briefly here. One, some of their auto attacks just one-shot you. Some of the auto attacks are obviously overtuned, and I've been one-shot by some basic just swings. I'll get hit by a massive slam and I'll almost die. I'll live with a few hundred hit points, but an auto attack will take me from 4,000 energy shield, 1,500 life to 0. That seems like it's a tuning thing. Hope Grinding Gear Games fixes that soon. The other is, some of the rewards do not match how long these boss fights take. I think that they need to juice up the boss rewards a little bit at least to match what you're getting from the rare monsters and the rest of the mechanics in maps. Once they do that, I think bosses will just be in such a good place. I'm so excited to do a completely fresh run with trade enabled in 0.4. I would say in SSF, but that's probably a little bit too time consuming for myself. Once we get a fresh start with this brand new endgame with maybe the Druid, knew I'd get it in the video, enabled, ooh, Path of Exile 2 is going to be in such a seriously ridiculously good state. Now, I would be remiss if I did not say that all these opinions are colored by me playing an Invoker, Ice Strike, Hollow Palm Technique Monk. I'm chilling monsters, I'm freezing monsters, I'm having a blast doing it. I am in melee a lot of the time. Some of the bosses, yes, are frustrating in melee range, but I'm still having a blast. Are you enjoying the new boss structure if you're still playing as much as I am? And if you're not playing, does this sound enticing to you? Do you look forward to actually battling the bosses and having them being a meaningful part of the game again in endgame? If you played during week 1, you might have had a very similar experience to myself, where you get to endgame, you're on a decently good build, and the map bosses last 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The fights are sometimes shorter than the campaign versions of those bosses. That doesn't appear to be the case anymore. especially in tier 15 maps. I think that's one of the best things, is now there is a clear distinction between tier 1 bosses and tier 15 bosses, and there's an even a bigger gap between the powerful map bosses and the regular map bosses as well. There's quite this chain of progression that you can go along to fight bigger and better bosses, which is something that Path of Exile 2 prided itself in and completely fell off by the time you hit endgame on any mediocre build. Speaking of something that didn't fall off too sharply, look at these player numbers for Path of Exile 2 0.3 over a month into the league. Last week, we hit a peak player count of 108,000 on Steam alone. Remember, it's on consoles and standalone. I play on standalone. And today, 78,000 peak on a Thursday morning. That is utterly ridiculous. Path of Exile 2 seriously has some legs, and I do think the game is just going to continue getting better and better and better. I love that they did not abandon 0.3 and move on to Path of Exile 1 3.27, which releases at the end of October, and instead got this endgame shift patch out. It's putting everything in an excellent spot for 0.4, which, let's talk about that very briefly. 0.4 is being pinned as the end game expansion for Path of Exile 2 so far. I reckon it'll have one class, whether that's the Druid or Duelist and swords in it, as well as a significant content addition to endgame. That's the wording of Jonathan in the latest video about Path of Exile 2. This was setting up Path of Exile 2 for a mechanically sound endgame, removing towers from the use of tablets, giving you more control and freedom over your maps, allowing you to play what you want to play. Well, in 0.4, they're going to be focusing on adding content to the endgame. So for those of you who are new to Path of Exile, maybe you didn't play Path of Exile 1, Path of Exile 2 is your first experience with grinding gear games and their additions to endgame. Well, here's what might be in store. Multiple new pinnacle bosses, a complete shift up to the actual Atlas system itself, perhaps a brand new storyline, a bunch of new ways to edit items, maybe some influence types with some powerful modifiers, a bunch of new uniques, and of course, we're probably going to get our second official league mechanic for Path of Exile 2. Something similar to Abyss. That's going to be great. However, none of those things are what I'm truly excited for this 0.4 patch. I think the biggest problem with Path of Exile 2's endgame specifically right now are the Atlas passive trees. They are not fun. They are not interesting. The way you progress through them is boring. They need to fix Atlas progression, and alongside that, make the Atlas passive trees exciting. Those two are bonded together. Once one is in a good spot, the other will be, and the systems just feed off each other. It's such a good loop. It's like that way in Path of Exile 1, you guys. Once those systems are good, oh, the end game is going to feel even better. That's what I think they're going to focus on for 0.4. Making each of the Atlas passive trees for Breach, for Abyss, I'm sure Abyss will get one, all exciting alongside the general Atlas passive tree. Yes, the new Pinnacle boss will probably be cool and all, so will the Druid, but the Atlas passives, that's where the true fun resides. Is that something you're looking forward to, or am I just crazy? Okay, shifting away from Path of Exile 2 for a second and talking more about general ARPG goodness. This is the phenomenon I was talking about earlier in the video. EHG has come out and said that their first expansion after Season 4, after Season 5, might be a paid one. Similar to how Diablo 4 is also going to have a paid expansion coming out next year as well. In the case of last Epoch, it's because Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3 were not profitable for EHG, and this also led to Krafton buying them out for $98 million. For Blizzard, well, they're just going to have you pay for all the big good stuff. Now, what this is going to do is put Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 in unique positions, as most likely being the only non-pay-to-win games on the market in the ARPG genre that are also free. Honestly, it is sad to see the other ARPGs faltering a little bit, while Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 seem to be on a spree. But as someone who does prefer both of these games to the alternatives right now, it makes me a little happy that Grinding Gear Games does seem to be balling out at the end of 2025 going into 2026. I sincerely hope with 3.27 at the end of October, either on Halloween or 1 week before, and with Path of Exile 2 0.4 expansion in December, I don't end up eating my words. I really hope they are both phenomenal. There we have it, everyone. So is Path of Exile 2 0.3.1 expansion patch any good? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, the best thing you can do is leave a comment, like the video, subscribe with the bell on, and watch another video on screen right now. It might be a live stream, it might be one of my Still Sane podcast episodes, maybe even one of those crazy shorts I've been putting out. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to stay sane and have fun.